This is day 2 of the November 91 7-day retreat at Springwater. In recent retreats, I have read all the questions that I have written down or that people have written down for me. It has been felt to be helpful by participants to hear other people's questions. So I will continue with this. Obviously, we can't go into every one of these. Is it all right to cry in this room? I have always repressed crying. Watching in my daily life the way I react, the way I talk to people, the way I remember the past and plan out scenarios for the future, I see nothing but self-centeredness. Can that ever come to an end? It seems to be totally endless. I can never really be with people directly. I have observed that spending some time with conflict, watching it, not repressing it, not ignoring it, allowing it to reveal itself more closely, what is revealed is the constant demand on myself to be a good person and the effort that goes into this. Seeing it clearly is a relief from this demand with its efforts. The more I look, the more quiet time I spend, the more intolerant I get of people. Their ways of always being in the past or future, never really here, and so superficial. Have I developed a new way of judging others and separating myself? Becoming aware of the problems which thought creates, I want to get rid of all thoughts. Be free of this mind which is the cause of my burdens. But that isn't what you call understanding the mind, is it? How can I be useful in this world, not just always concerned with myself? Came up in a group, and another question that just occurs now is, I feel that I have to do some useful work to justify my existence on this earth. In working in daily life, what creates my problems with the work I do? My thoughts or the environment? I go to different retreats, and for a while the chattering mind calms down, but sooner or later afterwards I'm overwhelmed by the pressures of work, my social engagements, and so forth. Does this mean I need more discipline, more control? Let us suppose, as you described it yesterday, the Palestinians would listen to the Israelis and understand what they want and not insist on their own demands. Wouldn't that be giving up their own proper rights? Aren't there times when people will only listen when someone gets forceful, angry? When you feel a need or desire to do something, do you do it spontaneously or do you analyze before acting? I understand the need to do questioning whenever a problem arises, but doing so, don't you lose awareness of reality? Is questioning participating in this incessant monologue that goes on in the mind? I can no longer go along with the habits and customs and rites of the religious group I was born into. I see clearly the separation and division it causes and perpetuates. Does this mean I'm creating a new division myself by not participating? Am I creating a new self-image of the one who doesn't belong? One has to look, doesn't one? Is there a new image created? The question comes up, I no longer want to participate in a group with rites and traditions which clearly I can see separate this group from other groups, from all humanity. It divides and it perpetuates this division. All the religious groups, all the political, all the ideological groups, the families, the tribes, all of this perpetuates division among the human family, which is one whole family, and creates antagonism and endless wars. We're seeing it emerging everywhere, all the time, more and more. Is it just because we have more news or because it is happening more? More identities in people to be fostered, to be proclaimed, to be insisted upon, to be defended with its own army, its own weapons. I see that clearly. I don't want to belong to any more group. Not participate, not perpetuate this division, says this person. And we can ask this question too. And can we see this clearly ourselves? The perpetuation of division and separation by identifying with a group which separates itself from others. And the seeming security I derive from that identification. I'm an Arab, I'm an American, I'm a German, I'm a Ukrainian, an Uzbek, or whatever, Jew, Palestinian. The security, the pride that is wired into the whole nervous system and body. When the flag goes up, the symbols are raised that one has learned to be attached to place enormous value on, the highest value. One has seen it all around. One has imbibed the vibrations, the atmosphere of flag raising, national anthem singing, of religious ceremonies, fragrances in the church, sounds, visual effects. And one has discovered that this is separating, dividing the human family. And one wants no part in this. And then the question arises, am I separating myself now as a non-belonger, non-conformist? Is there a new image coming up that I am attaching to? One can look, can't one? It's tremendous that this question arises for this person. For whoever. One must not assume because one has left one identity that another hasn't sprung up in its place, or another several. But once the question has been asked, one can watch. Are there thoughts? I am better than the others. I have seen the truth. They are the benighted ones. And it's such a fine line between seeing clearly what is going on and saying no to that, not participating in it, and yet not creating one's own identity as the non-participator. Not attaching value to this idea of oneself as being so discerning, so wise. And as if that image comes up, as it does, very likely we are programmed all this way to try to make something out of ourselves all the time. As this comes up, can it be seen and dispelled in the seeing? Because the danger is evident. One has seen it in the other identification. It's the same danger here. Identification is separation from the whole flow of aliveness, shared by all human beings and animals and trees and stones and clouds and water. A shared aliveness which is not divided. Even though a tree is not a stone, it doesn't need to be. But they're not divided from each other. It's one whole process of being here. Having evolved, changing. All together. Not as an identity, but as a reality. So, if the question comes up, have I created a new identity? Then look. The question, if it is not immediately answered, no, I haven't, I don't believe in identities anymore, then one won't see. And one has an idea that one is not. It's not true seeing. True seeing means, I don't know. Let there be openness to discover images that come up. The brain is an image-making factory or instrument. It's programmed to do this for our protection, but it doesn't understand what images are protective, like fire burns, and what images are separating and dangerous. I'm different and better than you are. Maybe that brings us to the next question of what is questioning. But before getting to that, I don't want to forget to say that it is all right to cry in this room. When tears well up, let them flow over. Not to repress it. This is not a place for repressing anything. And yet, can one also carefully watch not to make a drama out of it? It also happens in this brain, making stories, adding to stories, poor me or whatever. I'm just taking that as an example. It may not be the case for someone who cries. Sometimes when something is so relieving and inside, the tears well up, one doesn't know why. So let them well up, let them drip or wipe them off. And watch whether the storyline is beginning to run about me and my life. And then we begin to cry about that rather than what triggered it. The story, like a tear-jerking movie or novel, the story that the mind makes up about my life, having been so victimized or whatever, that elicits more tears. I'm not saying don't do it, but watch it. I'm not judging it. It happens for all of us. We're the same in all of these processes. One a little bit more of this, another one a little less of that. But the processes run in all of us. So to watch it, so there can be some wisdom about this human being here who represents all human beings. So we understand this and we understand everyone, as has been observed in ourselves, not through what we read about human beings. I'm not condemning that. It's interesting to read about human beings, but what about myself here? As I read this, do I already identify with the cases? Maybe in a case history book, psychology. I remember when I used to read those, I identified with every case I read about. Was sure this was me. Maybe it was, but it was very burdening, not freeing, not insightful. I was just thinking about myself and the possibilities of being this or that, categorized and prognosed and diagnosed. That's a good thing to watch. Does one constantly diagnose oneself or say, as one has been told, oh, you are this or you are that, you are sort of a depressive person, or you're optimistic kind, or you are always a failure, or one has been told these things. Can one question all of these categories and see their binding impact on this whole way of on one's whole way of living? Dispel them, don't believe in them, and find out what you are from moment to moment. Maybe the category is not accurate. Maybe it was accurate once. But how can it be? Because we are a changing, evolving being. Only kept from changing and evolving by the categories we put, or the labels we put on ourselves, perpetuating what has been put on ourselves by others, and then adding a few our own. We like to know what we are in terms of labels, which is so shallow and so false. We're not a label. What are we? As what we describe a depression strikes. What is going on? I don't want to label it any. I want to feel it. Observe it. Question it. And here we come to this question of what is questioning. Does it become analytical? The person says, it seems to always become analytical for me, and then the attention that was there before the question arose is gone. That's a good observation. There was a moment of attention, and then a question came up. I don't know, we didn't talk about. The person said, well, any question, anything comes up. And then maybe feeling I ought to question this, because this is what they're doing here. And then falling into analytical states of mind. Meaning thinking about what came up. But what we're talking about is observing what is coming up. It's a feeling which I've always called a depression. Or maybe the moment I call it a depression, it really turns into one. So depressed. What do I mean when I say that? That's a question, isn't it? And I'm not beginning to analyze. I'm sort of demanding some attention be given to this state that I have just called a depression. I want to watch it, not just be satisfied or dissatisfied with a label. So can I watch? Can there be watching of the thoughts that go through the mind? There is no hope for me. Other people can do it, I can't. I've always been a loser. Thoughts like that, are they going through the mind and the body responding in its very obedient way to the thoughts with all kinds of chemicals affecting the bloodstream, the muscles, the glands, or organs? Thoughts have that power. It's more and more discovered now in research. That one thought and then what is called a neurotransmitter from the nervous system, chemical information to the whole body. Danger, or watch out, or make ready for running, or for fighting, or for whatever. from a thought? Can one watch that? One thought, I'm a loser, and the body responds in a sagging way. I'm using a gross word, but one can observe the subtleties of it too. Maybe the change in breathing, the flexing of muscles, or the loss of tonus. And then more thoughts. Will this depression be as long as my last one, which lasted for 2 months? They always last so long. Is this what is going on? And can one look at all of that and not buy any of it? Not know what it is, not know how long it lasts? Just watch with an interest, with a curiosity. To look into this human being with all of its processes which are so consequential, they have such impact. Not just on our own mood, but with our own moods we affect each other. A person in a depressive mood affects the people around her or him. What is this depressive mood I'm in? Can I watch it? Listen to the thoughts that go about. And the listening not be at all judgmental. The listening not take any position for or against it. The listening be something different from this process of thinking about myself and emoting about myself, which is being watched. The watching, the listening, looking is different. It does not have any conclusion about it. It doesn't participate in this thinking realm. It just watches, listens, looks, throws light, air. And as that is going on, that which is being watched changes. It doesn't maintain itself, because now there's air and light and looking and listening. Not just a perpetuation of the thought processes, which would perpetuate the mood. Do you see that? Am I talking too fast? The question was, there's a moment of attention, then something comes up, maybe a depressive thought, we'll just take that. I'm questioning it and I become analytical, and the attention is lost. We're wondering whether there can be a kind of question in which attention is needed to find out, to look, to discern. Like someone saying, I noticed, what was it? Conflict, a feeling of conflict. And for once, there was some time to spend with it. There was time. I took time to spend with it, to let it sort of reveal itself. What is this thing here? Which was felt as a lingering, murky sort of a conflict. So in listening, what reveals itself is this a long-standing demand to be a good person. And of course, with that, the feeling I'm not a good person. The way I acted, the way I talked wasn't good, but I got to be a good person. I got to get better. And all of that happening automatically. There has to be no awareness of that for that to go on. Because we're conditioned, we're programmed to have to be good and not to be the way we are, to despise that, to suppress it, to think it's wrong and to try to make an effort to be better. All of that can run subterraneously. This person found out by just spending some time with this thing that felt like a conflict. Now, this wasn't analyzing conflict. It was raising a question about it and then spending time with it, quiet time, open time to discover whatever there may come up. Ugly things, nice, it doesn't matter. What's going on? Sometimes another question may come up. Is there conflict because I don't like what I'm doing right now? And then listen again. Not say, well, I like what I'm doing, or I don't like. But if a question comes up, give it some time to sort of sink in. And then maybe from some deeper quarters an answer will come. No, I'm not dissatisfied right now with what's going on. So then why is there this conflict, this discontent? I want to know. Maybe another question suggests itself. That I'm not doing this or that, and then wait, listen, look, feel. Don't know. And maybe some of these non-explicit programs will reveal themselves. Someone else said that in a meeting. I find that there's a lot of non-explicit stuff going on in the mind. And this is sort of subdued, repressed stuff, programs, commands, be like this, don't be like that. You've done wrong. You're guilty. Let it, by wondering about it, stopping to listen, let it become explicit or clear, whichever way you want to put it. And it does work this way when there is lots of time, no pressure to go to work, to finish a project, to be something. Here you don't have to be anybody. You may not know this. You may think you have to be a good meditator. But you don't have to be anything here. You can discover what you are this moment. And maybe not find anything. Does this clear up a bit the questioning? I'll say some more about questioning. Because the word so much hooks into our conventional ideas about questioning. One mention was to be analytical. I couldn't right now even give an example. A word, I don't know right now what. I couldn't give a demonstration of analytical thinking. Maybe someone else can do it for themselves. But one very conventional way of questioning is to come up with an answer immediately. Deeply programmed that if a question is asked, whether I ask it myself, someone else asks it of me, I have to answer. I notice this sometimes in group discussions, whether here or abroad, people who haven't been engaged very long in this questioning process. Someone will raise a question in a group and somebody else immediately answer it. Which of course ends, if one doesn't draw attention to this, it would end the question. An answer has been given, and we tend also to be programmed to be satisfied with an answer. Because the question maybe was not very deep. Or our attention span or curiosity span is not very great. So as long as the program is fulfilled of getting an answer, one lets the thing go. But this is not the questioning referred to here. It is rather a questioning which abstains from the immediacy of answering or the immediacy of demanding an answer. Not immediately say, well, it's just because of that, and because of this and this and this. This may be analytical. But yeah, why? To sort of bathe for a moment in wondering about something that one has taken for granted all one's life. That there's an immediate desire for an answer. Why? To let that question be there, be active, sink in. Turn this whole body-mind into a state of questioning, of wondering why. Not why to get an answer, but a very vast wondering why. Not give me an answer, but let me look. Let me find out, investigate, or listen. With you, together, here we can do it together, or alone. Often if people are in that same state of vast wondering and looking, it's a great thing to be several, to share in the questioning. Maybe further questions suggest themselves. Or if some answer comes up, to look at it, not to take it, and be satisfied with it. Is that really so? To question our quick satisfaction at answers. Questioning here meaning, as it evolves, no quick satisfaction with words or concepts or automatic responses. Questioning meaning remaining open. Open to watch, look, listen, hear for oneself. Together with each other or alone, which makes one very porous, makes this body-mind porous to what is going on inside and out, receptive, open, undefended. Maybe we can, in this connection, come to this question. What, you seem to imply, the person said, that people at this conference there in Madrid should listen to each other. And what if the Palestinians listened to the Israelis, understood their position, and then went along with it? Wouldn't this be giving up their own rights? Justified rights. But see, we didn't talk, I didn't mean to talk about solutions for this conference yesterday. Heaven forbid. All that occurred to the mind is what an opportunity there is for these people finally to have gotten together and just listening to each other. Is not exactly what the conference was established for, just to listen to each other. It was already to get peace and whatever that means. So I'm just taking this as an example of people with such divergent or seemingly divergent backgrounds, histories. In one way, they're all the same. Everybody has a right to the same thing, and so forth. Seemingly divergent histories, religions, claims, they're all the same, aren't they? It's not divergent. But everybody thinks mine is the only important one. And mine hasn't been heard. The others have never listened to me. So here we are, 10 of us, 20 of us, each one thinking my reality has never been heard and it's the true one. And needs to be heard, and I need to convince others of it. But what if we didn't have this urge to convince others, but just to share, to talk about it, to let each other know? And while I'm listening to the 19 other realities being presented, I suspend my own. Because I can't listen to the others unless I suspend my own opinions. It doesn't have to be the conference in Madrid. It can us being here together, having problems with each other and talking, getting together to air these problems. Can we listen to someone else's position and suspend our own? That's the question. And if every one of us, or most of us, could do that, listen to everyone else and suspend one's own position for and against. Just this open, undefended listening. Wouldn't there something emerge in this group of people? Something that may have nothing to do with all of these positions. Would maybe not be any more a matter of giving up my rights and acknowledging your rights. Maybe something new would happen, come out of a listening in which it's realized how we cling each to our own separate reality and therefore separate each other from each other, fight each other, kill each other, destroy our cultures and buildings and children and women and men. What are we doing to each other in the name of our separate reality? Can we see that? See that everyone is in that same boat? And is there a reality that is not 20 different separate realities? That is shared and common? And has no divisions? No separate identities? That's really the root of the question. In a listening without taking a position, suspending or keeping the personal position in abeyance, is there touch made with something else that is not of the personal, divisive, separatist nature and can be shared by every listener who puts aside his or her separate reality in listening? You wouldn't be delegated a representative to such a conference if you did that. No one would send you there. So that's not the place to start experimenting with. But we do get together over problems, and at work, on staff. How do we listen to each other? Not that if I understand your position, I have to give up my own, then I already am afraid that I may lose something and therefore I won't listen. But facing something fresh, not knowing the outcome. Maybe if we listen to each other like that, there will be a feel of communion among each other where all these separating opinions will seem so trifling, so petty, and they can be resolved some way or other. Out of this other state of being in communion with each other without identity, without position, defense or attack. I could say, why are you getting so idealistic? This is impossible. I'm not being idealistic. I'm asking a question, whether it's possible. And that question has to be put to the test. Not say it's possible or it's impossible. Maybe neither. One has to test it out next time we meet over problems. And notice the urge, the compulsive urge to present my side, my problem, defend it. And therefore I haven't heard what you said. I don't want to hear what you're going to say because I want to be heard myself. Noticing that, can that abate? Because I really also want to listen and hear someone else on a different level altogether. On the level of not knowing what's right or wrong, just listening what's there. Can that happen? Why not? We'll have to see. We will end here for today.